And we're live. Welcome to yet another edition of PCS Q&A. I'm your host, MJ Boyce. I am the Director of Community Outreach at PCS Grades. As always, with me is the lovely Megan Harless, our resident PCS reform advocate, and oh, by the way, resident BA censored for little ears in your room, because we love you. Now, I wasn't on last week, and for good reason. I wasn't just skipping school, if you will. I wasn't just playing hooky. As Megan so lovely went ahead and introduced, I have been promoted to Mimi. So I now have a grandson, even though I don't look old enough to even have a daughter old enough to have a baby. But that's the case. And thank God her airman was able to be here during the birth. And so was I, which is awesome. And it blew my mind. That's a whole nother topic though. So let's go ahead and get down to business. I'm going to give you those housekeeping items and of course throw it over to Megan for those DoD updates before we dive in. All right. As always, first and foremost, we bring experts to you. We bring Transcom. We bring the education experts. We've got movers. We've got the industry experts. We bring them to you because they are the subject matter experts, because they know the things. But sometimes you're going to end up in a situation where you're going to have a specific issue that is specific to you and your family. You and your family. Because that happens because Murphy. So when that happens, if there's a specific situation that we can't help you with, because guess what? I don't know if you knew this, we have the answers. You ask the questions in the comments below. We've got the answers, me and my girl Megan here. But if we don't know the answers, we know who does. And if we don't know either of those things, we take your questions for action. We get back to you with an answer. Don't forget to drop them, by the way. But we bring these experts to you because they're resources. But there are only two forever and always resources for your specific situation. Number one, your local chain of command. And number two, your local transportation office. Those are the people who know you. Those are the people who are dealing with your stuff. Those are the people who can help further your issue for action. Okay, last but certainly not least, obviously, if you don't live under a rock, so there's a lot going on with the COVID, but we need to do our part, people. Got to do our part. This, if any evidence that we have to do our part, we have to be smart. We have to flatten that curve, wear your mask, social distance, whatever it takes, especially in the area you're in. We got to flatten that curve because when we do, we're going to flatten Murphy with it. Murphy, you are on notice. We are coming for you. And with that, I'm going to hand it over to Megan for those DoD updates. Megan?
Hey everybody, so we have just a couple updates for you today. The first one, we were getting some questions in the groups as far as POV claims about, what happens after I drive away with my car from picking it up and I discover, something isn't working right, something with the radio, something with, a stereo, some other thing that you might not have checked when you picked up the car. You do have 7 to 10 days after picking your vehicle up that you can file a claim for anything else that's wrong with it that you didn't check the day of picking up your car. We've also had a couple of questions in the groups about how, right now, currently until the end of the calendar year, PPMs are being reimbursed at 100%. A lot of folks are being confused because their paperwork is saying 95%. Since this is right now just a temporary update increase for the entitlement, they're not creating new paperwork that says 100%, but you are being reimbursed at 100%. If you have questions about, how much you should be receiving, reach out to your local transportation office. They can give you, based off of your weight and your distance, what that estimated reimbursement should be. But just know, even though your paperwork may say reimbursed at 95%, you are being reimbursed at 100%. They're just not updating their paperwork for that. That's all I've got for now. So back to MJ.
Thank you for those updates. Love it. Just for the record, everybody, Megan is the bomb diggity because she goes down the rabbit hole for us. If I were to say what she just said, you would not be able to understand it the way that she just made you understand it. Boom. So today's topic is all things regulation, which is why this is Megan's wheelhouse, right? Okay. So the regulations are often confusing because it's military speak. But what Megan's going to do is she's going to go ahead and break it down based on the questions that I'm asking. And she's going to, which are, by the way, based on our life. because yeah. So she went ahead and she's got all the resources and all the regulations specific to the questions that you have. And we've got many of them here for you today. So if you feel like you need to get a pen and pencil, go for it, but you don't have to, because there's this awesome thing called the replay button, and you will be able to replay this on the back end. But if you have any questions, again, drop them below, because we got the answers. If we don't, we know who does. And if we don't have either of those things, we'll take it for action. On your mark, get set, here we go. All right. So the first question.
Just so you guys that are like going to scramble with pen and paper, do get it, keep your notes, but I will drop the links to all the regulations we discuss in the comments when we get done with this, and Facebook and the program allow me to comment at the same time. So just know those links will be coming, but do take notes.
Word, what she said. Okay, so I'm going to phrase this question, and everything that she's going to say is going to sound a little confusing, but I promise you it's not going to be. What are the regulations that military families need to know about?
So there are several regulations that you should know in regards to PCSing, and each one's going to fall in line to a different part of your PCS depending on what it is, what question you have, what it is you need to look at. So the first one you should know is the DTR Part 4 Appendix B. So this one is called the Tender of Service. This is basically like the contract between your TSPs, your transportation service providers, and Transcom, the DoD. So if you want to know what it is that those companies are kind of agreeing to, you'll find it here in the DTR Part 4 Appendix B, also known as the Tender of Service. The next regulation you should know is the DTR Part 4 Attachment K1. This one is often referred to as the It's Your Move document. It lays out what your responsibilities are, what your TSP's responsibilities are. If you got questions about shipping boats, firearms, other weird, odd things, you will find those answers addressed in the attachment K1, as well as pro gear and some other basic things that you should need to know about your move. The next one you should know is the JTR Chapter 5. This one governs your financial entitlements. So if you've got questions as to, how should your per diem be paid out? How many days are you authorized with your TLA, TLE, lodging entitlements? What certain things can you be reimbursed for? You'll find all of that in the JTR Chapter 5. The next one is the Claim Liability Business Rules. So this regulation, as you can see, is all about claims. So if you need to know what their liability is, if you need to know how a mold shipment should be handled, if you need to know about, the TSP's responsibility in picking up items that they want to salvage, you'll find it all in the Claim Liability Business Rules. The last one is the Defense Travel Management Office, or the DTMO. So this is where you will find out all those other, it kind of goes in line with your financial entitlements. So if you need to know how many days am I authorized to move from New York to California, you can find it there. If you need to know, what is the DLA dislocation allowance chart for 2020 or 2021, if you are preparing for a move next year, you'll be able to find it on the DTMO website. You're muted.
Okay, apparently I'm a little rusty. So anyway.
Welcome back, MJ.
Thanks. Yes. Murphy, back off, buddy. Back off. Back it off.
Yeah.
All right. So that was definitely a lot, but we're gonna go into some kind of ones that you've probably been wondering about yourself. One of them in particular, one of the most controversial questions is about pro gear and spouse pro gear. So what actually qualifies for pro gear, and where do we find the answer?
So there's two locations that you can find the answer to this, and they kind of work together. So the first one is going to be in the DTR Part 4 Appendix or Attachment Appendix K1, Attachment K1, same thing. Pages 9 to 10 discusses pro gear and spouse pro gear. And then you can also find it in the JTR Chapter 5, Paragraph 054309. Now, the DTR Part 4 piece does reference the JTR Chapter 5 piece. So if you forget, look up one, you'll see it referenced to the other. So basically, your spouse pro gear for the service member is basically anything that is military issued and also things that they may need for their specific job. So if they are a mechanic and they have like, specialty tools that are, assigned to them that they can move with PCS with, those tools would count as the pro gear. If they are a flight pilot person, and they have like their special flight suits and other equipment, that stuff would count as pro gear. If they are a doctor and they've got, their medical books and medical equipment, that stuff counts as pro gear. Now for spouse and for pro gear, you're allowed up to 2,000 pounds of pro gear. Now for spouse pro gear, it gets a little, I don't know what the word is, a little more strict as to what can be put in there as spouse pro gear. So it is defined, and let me pull this up because I want to be able, if I can find it in time, no, that's not the right one. I'm sorry, y'all. I was going to read it to you, and it just is not there. But spouse pro gear is usually things if for your job or what they call community to support community involvement. So community involvement could be if you volunteer with the Scouts and you have camping equipment, you can count that camping equipment as spouse pro gear. If you do some fundraising activities or hosting activities and you've got items that you've used for that, you can count that as well as, community involvement items as spouse pro gear. Obviously for your job, if you are a personal business, you cannot include inventory and things for resale, but you can include, like the raw items, the stuff before you make it. You can include, your tools you use to make whatever it is that you make it. One of the big comments we hear back is, what about homeschooling equipment? Like we homeschool, I'm considered a teacher. I have, 300 pounds of books and things and stuff to teach my children. Unfortunately, right now, homeschooling equipment is not considered spouse pro gear. The only way around that is if you have a teaching certification and you can count it, as teacher equipment then. But a lot of transportation offices are starting really to crack down on what is included in spouse pro gear because as we know, it takes just one bad apple to kind of ruin it for everybody else. So, some spouses were trying to include some things as spouse pro gear, to kind of help their weight allotment a little bit to not go over. People were catching on what was going on. They started cracking down. So they're really strict on what is spouse pro gear now. I can tell you that, services we've brought up multiple times, homeschooling equipment should be counted as spouse pro gear, especially now, in the pandemic, with a lot of people going to virtual learning, a lot of people, that have chose to continue just homeschooling after schools have opened back up. How can we help this burden on families? Services are looking at trying to see if they can do something there with the homeschool equipment, but as of right now, that piece is not included in it.
Well, no fair, A, yeah. And B, if you're listening, DOD, anybody, any of the decision makers, this is a thing. And even if it's only for a minute, we know thousands and thousands of military families that would absolutely believe this is necessary. I personally believe it's necessary. We didn't choose this. It chose us.
Yeah, so absolutely.
Okay. So here's something that, kind of comes straight home. So everybody has a million of those, those plastic totes, the big plastic tubs and stuff that we store things. I personally probably have more totes than I do things to put in it. So what is like the rule or the regulation regarding those plastic totes? Like if I got a bunch of stuff and it's already in there and I hadn't seen it in a minute, but I need to keep it there, what's the regs?
Okay, so again, there's two pieces here. The DTR Part 4, Appendix B, pages 16 to 17, and then Move.mil. So if you go on Move.mil and search plastic totes, it'll bring up a piece about that as well. So here's the deal with it. So first, companies, because they are liable for anything that they take possession of with them when they move, they are allowed to repack things that you have already packed. So totes, sometimes, and it's at the company's discretion. So those plastic totes that we all have a million of, they can open them up. They need to open them up because they need to verify the contents first for the inventory. But they can open them up, and if they think things need to be repacked, they can repack them into cardboard boxes. A lot of it is because they are liable for it now, regardless of who packed it. And so they're going to do their best to try to limit how things with the claims and do their best to mediate that piece of it. So they are allowed to repack it. And that's what the Appendix B, pages 16 to 17 discuss. On Move.mil, it says in there, basically the same thing. You can use them, but it is the company's discretion on if they want to be packed. The big thing with rubber totes, like Rubbermaid, the Sterilite totes, they should not be used for non-temp storage. If you have items going to non-temp storage, everything should come out of the totes and be packed into boxes before being moved to non-temp storage. A lot of that concern is just because, it's a plastic box, so depending on where your stuff is being stored, those storage units are not climate controlled. The heat can wear on those plastic boxes, and we've seen some that have come out of storage locations, in different forms than what they went into. Also, if they don't get stacked properly, you get a, heavy tote placed on top of a not so heavy tote. The integrity of that tote isn't going to last very long. So you can use them, but just be aware companies do have the right to inspect them, repack things as necessary, or completely repack them into a cardboard box. My family, we, just like everybody else, we have many, many totes. We've since have tried to transition into like the tough boxes that our service members use for deployments, just because they're a harder plastic, they're sturdier. And I always suggest, it is a big investment money-wise, but if you have the ability to, I would suggest trying to go that route because, they are stronger. The integrity is going to last longer, and you'll probably face less pushback trying to repack one of those than a Rubbermaid tote. But they can repack it. It is at their discretion, but just be aware of that.
Word. I'm not the biggest fan of anybody going through my stuff, but I get it because it's a whole liability thing and all that good stuff. So let's see. Let's talk some high value inventory. Let's talk the good stuff. All right. Let's talk about it. Some companies will give you that form to fill out. And then others say, it's some crazy thing like anything over $1,000, So what is it, what actually can go on the high value inventory list? And where do we find it? Where is it at?
So
first thing I'm going to do, by the way.
So first is that you can find it listed in the Claims Liability Business Rules on page 13. And I just want to read, I actually have this one up now, so I want to read it to you. It says, high value, high risk items may include, but is not limited to, currency, coins, jewelry, silverware and silver service sets, crystals, figurines, furs, objects of art, computer software programs, manuscripts, comics books, baseball card stamps, and other collectible items or rare documents that have a value in excess of $100 per pound. For the purpose of determining the TSP's liability, all such items shall be deemed to weigh at least 1 pound. A collection of compact discs and digital video discs will not be considered high value, high risk items. However, individual CDs or DVDs with a value in excess of $50 will be considered a high value item. So that is what the regulation says. So basically, those items that are at least $100 per pound is kind of the baseline. So a lot of times you get these companies that want to say, it's only for things that are worth $500 or $1,000. You can push back and say, no, it's $100 per pound. I can put these items that are on it. Generally speaking, I always say, if you're allowed to, if they give you that high value inventory and they say, here it is, go ahead, sit down, fill it out because you know your items. I always say anything that's irreplaceable, hard to replace, that's an antique, that's, things like your sports memorabilia, your fine china, your crystal, your Polish pottery collection, should all be, your electronics should all be included on it. Now, speaking of your antiques, I always suggest put the money out there to get your antiques appraised, because we have items that are solid wood furniture that were built in the 50s, 60s, sometimes later than that. Obviously you're not going to get the same item, same quality. You can't go down the store and repurchase it, but you want to make sure that you're covered. And so I always say for those items, even your sports memorabilia collection, you're a big whatever fan and you have lots of items, lots of, signed items by sports teams, sports folks and whatnot, take the time, spend the money, get the appraisal done, because if something should happen, you will be so thankful that you have that appraisal that says, actually that item is worth $5,000 and not the $500 that you're offering me. So I always say for those high value items, make sure you have that appraisal done for those big collections and those antique things.
I mean, that makes sense. I remember a few webinars ago, I mentioned my husband, shout out, Boo. I mentioned my husband's vintage video games.
Mm-hmm.
And I would never have thought to put that on there, but then you're like, yeah, you might want to think about that. So no, that's good. That's good. Okay, let's switch gears a little bit, because I'm kind of like thinking now about the whole travel aspect of things, because that's the best part, right? So we're moving, let's say we're moving from New York to California.
Long drive.
Right. How would I find out how many travel days were authorized? And two, how do we get paid for each travel day that is authorized?
So first, you'll find that information on the Defense Travel Management Office, the DTMO, and we'll drop that link in the comments here when we're done. But basically, you are authorized 350 miles per day. So whatever your distance is, divide it by 350 miles, and that's how many days you're authorized. Now, if the remaining amount is 0 to 50 miles, then you do not get an additional day. That you just kind of tack that on into another day and chug along. If it is 51 miles or more, you can get additional day authorized for your move. So if for some reason you have, it takes you 6 days and you still have 62 miles to go, then you're authorized 7 days. Now, as far as payment goes, you are paid per diem, flat rate per diem for your travel days. That is supposed to include your gas, food, and lodging. And like I said, it's a flat rate. So your service member gets a flat rate. Your dependent and any other dependent that's 12 and above, you get 75% of that rate. And then kids get, I believe, 50% of that rate. And so you get that amount for each day. So say you're authorized 10 days, but you get to California in 8 days, you're only going to get paid for 8 days. So it's I don't want to call it a use or lose kind of deal, but you only get paid for the days that you use in your authorized travel days, if that makes any sense.
Yes, it does. Thank you, by the way, because I would not have gotten that right off the bat had I just gone to the regulation and tried to read it and go through it. And by then I would have forgotten what I was looking for. Oh, gosh.
It happens sometimes. Sometimes you get so ingrained in these regulations, and you're supposed to be reading about claims, and the next thing you know, you're reading about salvage and other stuff because you're just it's fascinating.
Because it's a rabbit hole. It is.
Join me in it. It's great.
Okay, that's all you, sister. I'll just be your backup. Okay, how about that? Okay, so we hear a lot about shipments being overweight or close to being overweight, and then, receiving emails from DPS about, with the weight can often be really worrisome, so where can we find information about the reweigh process and the rights that we as military families have when it comes to reweighs?
So yes, you will find information on weighing your shipments and reweighing your shipments in the DTR Part 4 Appendix B on page 9. So basically how things are set up right now is that you should receive a weight that gets entered into DPS, and you get an automated email from DPS that gives you that weight. Now, if you look at the bottom of your DPS, for anybody who has PCS this year, at the bottom of that email, it will have a note that says that the weight given in the email does not contain your pro gear or packing material deductions. And so that you get that weight if you're authorized 15,000 pounds, and you get that email and it says you're at 16,500 pounds, and you start freaking out like, oh my gosh, we're overweight, we're going to owe a lot of money. Take a breath and calm down, because that weight does not include your packing material deduction, which is 10% of your weight, or your pro gear deduction, which is 2,000 pounds for service members, or up to 500 for spouses. So keep that in mind when you look at that weight on DPS. Those deductions get taken off on the back end. The TSPs, they are required to put in the total weight that they have. The deductions get taken off by your local transportation office. So just keep that in mind when you look at it. Now, if for some reason your weight comes in at 20,000 pounds, you take off those deductions, in your head, you're like, okay, 10%, 2,000 pounds there. I know what we have for our pro gear. Like, we're only authorized 13,000 pounds. We're still going to be over. You can request a reweigh. Now, you need to request it before your household goods get delivered. Now, here's the good thing about this year. So this year, we implemented a new initiative that if you are within 10% of your allotted weight or you are over your weight, it automatically gets flagged for a reweigh. So you don't even have to request it, but you can request it, make sure that it does happen. And you do have a right to be there. So if you are overweight, you can say, hey, Move coordinator, I want to request a reweigh and I want to be present for the reweigh. They need to be able to give you the address and the name of the scale, the day and the time of when that reweigh is going to take place. So you can show up and you can see the truck holding your household goods get weighed, so you can see what that total weight is. But you can find all that information, like I said, in DTR Part 4, Appendix B. It starts on page 9. If for some reason you feel like you have, just excess packing material, that's maybe more than the 10% that they take, you can, request the full unpack, and they can come and take all of that packing material, put it on the truck, and go away just the packing material, to see if it is, the 10% or more than the 10%. I have seen that done for some cases, but if you're concerned, request that reweigh, and you have a right to be there.
Good to go. And you said that it's going to be automatic, but not forever, like just for now?
No. So it's in the regulations right now. I mean, it's something that we implemented for 2020 this year that took effect May 15th, 2020. If you are within 10% of your allotted weight, it should automatically be flagged for reweigh. And if you are over your allotted weight, it should automatically be flagged for reweigh also.
Word. Makes sense. Okay. That's awesome. That is awesome. Okay, so Brittany had a quick question, and I'm not quite sure how to answer. So she said, okay, I feel like my example was my delivery. I think I get it. If my package was opened and then the stuff wasn't returned, would be my claims.
Brittany, help me out here for some clarification. What do you mean that your package was open? Like some of your boxes was opened and stuff taken out? Give me some more information with that, and I'd be happy to answer you to help direct you in the right direction of what should be happening.
Yeah, and this is one of those things where this is a very confusing kind of topic, and there's a lot to unpack that Megan is doing right now. And so being kind of specific with like what your stuff is, my package was open. Does that mean like if they opened your stuff and or your stuff wasn't returned and you're missing stuff, which actually we're gonna get to that question. So we might actually end up answering this here in a second. So while you're getting that down, Brittany, we'll get back in touch with you too. Oh, so she said she had a delivery the other day.
Okay.
And opened the package, and some of the stuff was returned to the shipper, and some of the stuff wasn't.
Okay, so I'm assuming your stuff was delivered, and when you opened up, there was mold, there was damage, there was something of that nature. So what should happen in those cases? So if it was something like mold, you opened up a box and saw that there was mold and stuff in it, they should be taking that stuff back to a warehouse, and they should be separating out what should be salvageable, what should not be salvageable, and what is clear and free and can be delivered to you. If it's something that is not salvageable, they should be providing you a list of those items for your claim. If it is salvageable, they can go and have those items remediated. And then you can choose, if you want to have those items, like a mattress that had mold on it, maybe you don't want, even with it being remediated, I highly suggest for health reasons that you deny that item and just claim the mattress as a loss. So you can do things like that. But if they took items back to their warehouse for whatever means, they should be giving you a list of that. And then depending on what it was of how they were damaged as to whether they are salvageable or not, and then going through that process.
Word. Okay. Now this kind of, this might actually help everybody out. And this is actually a hot topic too. So a lot of families experience their shipments being late. And I've kind of heard some scuttlebutt about that happening recently. But we've got COVID and we've got crazy and it's just Murphy all over the place. But, you know, they've experienced the shipments being late and then they're authorized an inconvenience claim. So to file an inconvenience claim. So what's covered in an inconvenience claim and where do we find that information?
Okay, so you will first find the information on inconvenience claim in the DTR Part 4 Appendix B, and I believe it starts on page 11 is where you will find it. So first, let's discuss what kind of qualifies you for an inconvenience claim as we're going to discuss it. So first, if for some reason your RDD, your required delivery date is the 1st, but they delivered it into storage on the 28th, they met the requirement for RDD. So you're not eligible for an inconvenience claim then. Now, if you on the 1st request your stuff out of storage, during peak season, so May 15th to August 15th, they should have, I believe, 5 government business days to deliver your stuff. No, I'm sorry. 10 government business days during peak season to deliver your stuff out of storage. If it is not peak season, then it's 5 business days. So you request on the 1st your stuff to be delivered. It happens to be, you know, whatever, say it's the 7th because you have a weekend day in there or something that for it to get delivered and they say, sorry, we can't deliver it until the 9th, then you're eligible for 2 days of an inconvenience claim. You know, so it's important to know exactly how you qualify for an inconvenience claim, what makes you eligible, what doesn't, so that way you are within those regulations of knowing. I think a lot of people get confused because, you know, they told me it would be delivered on the 1st. Now they're telling me it's not going to get here until the 9th, but it was delivered to storage on the 28th. You got to kind of know those parameters of, you know, what meets their requirement for delivery and what doesn't. You know, so now that we've got that, there are 2 ways this year for how inconvenience claims are paid out, and you'll find the information on page 11 of Appendix B. So the first one is what they call the baseline per diem rate. So it is only the meals and incidentals rate only. So lodging piece of per diem is not included, and it is only for the service member only. So you don't get the dependent rates with it. You know, so this is where you can not have to save receipts. You can get it up to 7 days. You know, and this is a good route to go if you're people like my family who plan to house camp some, and maybe you don't need to buy, you know, an air mattress again because you already have it. You know, you don't need to buy anything else. You don't want to stay in a hotel anymore because, like us, we have 3 kids, we have 3 pets. Being in a hotel room is just not very enjoyable. You know, so this is a good route to go if you're folks in that arena where, you know, you already have your stuff to house camp. You don't need to buy another set of towels type of deal. Now, if you are those folks that don't come prepared for house camping because you are planning a door-to-door, you are planning to be in the hotel for 2 days and then, you know, roll right into your home on delivery day and be able to sleep in your own bed. So you had your air mattresses and everything packed up, or you are folks that don't like to house camp. You know, so you can then go with your TSP, ask them for the approved list of items that they will reimburse for. Now, I will tell you, we are not talking like state-of-the-art high-end items. You're not getting that new Rachel Ray cookware set. You're not getting that brand new luxury, you know, state-of-the-art inflates by itself, double high king air mattress kind of deal, okay? We're talking like basic necessities. So you're getting like the twin air mattress. Some companies, if you enjoy sleeping with your spouse, will allow you to get the queen size air mattress or the full size. You know, but we're talking basic end of the line type of stuff. They'll let you get like a cookware set. They'll let you get like a set of towels per person. You know, some other basic things that you would need in your home to basically kind of house camp. But your TSP should provide you a list of those items that they will reimburse you for. You should save your receipts for those items so you can submit them for reimbursement. And then also to note, they do have the right to come and pick up those items when your stuff gets delivered. Some companies do, and when they pick up those items, they're usually donated to like homeless shelters and other shelters in the community. A lot of companies don't. So before you go, returning it or giving it, to your neighbor or donating it to the local Boy Scout troop or whoever, verify with your move coordinator whether they're going to pick them up and bring them back or not. But those are the two ways that you can be reimbursed for an inconvenience claim.
Cool beans.
Yeah.
I like to hear that. Okay, last question, but it's a beefer. It's a big beefer. Okay. There are always questions about claims liability and what they cover. So talk to me about the liability. What exactly do they cover? Like, talk to me about the liability. And then also I want to know about replacement versus repair.
So you will find this information first on the Claims Liability Business Rules, page 4. So looking at it right now to be able to read it for you, it's $6 times either the net weight of the household goods shipment or the gross weight of the UB shipment in pounds not to exceed $7,500. So in layman's terms, they are liable for $6 per pound up to $7,500. So what that means for you is, so if a box goes missing, so on your inventory, you see where it talks about, like carton size and stuff. Sometimes you see some random numbers written there that you don't quite understand. They say 1.5, 3.0, 4.0, dish pack, wardrobe. That's talking about the size of the box. So 1.5 is 1.5 cubic feet. Those are your little book boxes. 3.0s, 4.0s are usually like your dish packs and your bigger boxes. Now they figure it on 7 pounds per cubic foot. So you take the 7 pounds times the $6 times the 1.5 cubic feet, and you get $63 that you would be reimbursed for that small book box should you not be able to itemize the contents of that box. Just a little understanding there. If you can itemize the contents of that box, then obviously you would be paid off of what you have in that box. That kind of worries some people when they hear like $63 for that book box, but I had 30 books in that box and they're, $10 a piece, like $63 is keep a list of your books. My husband, we have a good library, and God bless my husband, has like his list of books that he has on the bookshelf. So if we have a box missing, he knows exactly what it is, and he's got it in his Amazon wish list. He can easily pull up the amount that it was, and be good that way. But that's kind of how it's reimbursed. Now it's up to $7,500. So if you take $75,000. So if you take $75,000 divided by 6, you're at 12,500 pounds. So if you look at your shipments, like my family, we're authorized 17,000 pounds. We come pretty close to that. If our whole shipment goes up in smoke, in a fire somewhere, we're only being reimbursed $75,000. So that's where I always tell folks, like, you need to carry your renter's insurance, your homeowner's insurance, a personal property policy of some sort until, continuously. A lot of folks, they look at it and they say, well, we're moving next week. Like, I'm going to have it canceled next Friday because we're not going to be in another home for another 30 days. Do not, please, if you take anything away from this webinar, do not cancel your renter's insurance or your personal property insurance. I will say most policies will not cover damage, but they will cover loss. So those items, if they get stolen, if they go up in a fire, if they go up in, some mold issue or whatever, the TSP pays out first, and then anything that still needs to be reimbursed to, replenish your home, you file that with your private insurance. A lot of people don't realize that and that there is a cap on the liability from the moving company. There was one post recently in a group where a person had, some very expensive artwork, many pieces of this artwork. They were going to be moving, I believe, from Alaska to the lower 48. Was wondering about, how they should be packed, how they should be cared for, how they should be listed on the inventory. And then the comment of, it's unlimited liability for however much our household goods are, right? And it's, no, sister, it's not. It's up to $75,000. And for some people, that may be more than enough to cover what they need to replenish their home. For other folks, that's not nearly enough depending on what they had. So keep your renter's insurance, keep your homeowner's insurance. God forbid you have to file a claim. The TSP pays first, and then you submit it to your private insurance for them to pay secondary. But there is that cap. And I know a lot of people say, $75,000 isn't a lot. And $6 per pound isn't a lot. Prior to 2019, it was only $4 per pound. And it was only up to $50,000. So while it may not be enough to really cover things, it is a lot better than what it was a couple years ago. So $6 per pound up to $75,000. The second half of your question, replacement versus repair. So everything is covered at what we call FRV, full replacement value. So to understand that, let's use a TV for an example. You might have bought that TV brand new 6 years ago for $1,000. It got broken in the move. You can get that same TV replaced today for only $400. You're going to get the $400 because it can be bought for the $400. That's the liability. It's full replacement value. It's not full replacement what I paid 10 years ago cost, but what it takes to replace it now. So you're only going to get that $400 for that TV because that's what it is. So the company should first be offering you either replacement cost or repair. Now with repair, you have the choice to either take the repair or take the repair cost. With that, some people are just like, I don't trust them. I want to make sure it's done right. I want to use my person to repair it. If it comes in that the estimated repair cost is $400 and that's what they're offering, you can request that $400 and you can go do the repair yourself. Now, I caution you with that because if for some reason you go and get that repair and it comes out to be $500, you can't go back and ask for that $100. Once they send you the check and you cash it and everything, your claim is basically settled. So if you are going to use your own person for claims, for repairs, get a statement from them first of how much it's going to cost and submit that amount for your claim, and tell them that I'm using this guy, this is what it is. So that way you have that quote on hand. The second thing I always say to do that if you don't want to take that chance of maybe being out of pocket on a repair, ask the company to coordinate the repair for you. I've done that a couple of times where, I said, I really want this item repaired. It can be repaired, and they've called a repair company, sent people out, taken care of it for me. I think one time we took, a desk somewhere and got it repaired. So, you have that option too. That way they pay directly to the repair place. You're not out of pocket any money, and there's no middle person going through. So you totally have that option, but they should be offering your replacement cost, full replacement value cost, repair, or the repair cost.
Okay. That, some of that, here's the thing. Like I always thought okay, you're breaking, but what about those items that are will they even attempt to try and fix something that's antique? Or what about sentimental value? I mean, I know you can't really put a number on sentimental value, but that's a thing.
They will repair antique things. I have my grandmother's old antique sewing desk. In our last move, the furniture blankets that they used, some of the blue fuzz from them, because the Texas heat kind of melted into the finish of the antique desk. I told them I wanted it to be repaired because I love that sewing table. I'm not giving it up for anything. They coordinated the repair for me. A guy came out and he was able to clean up that finish, and fixed up a few scratches in the process of it because of the equipment material that he was using for it. So antique things can be fixed. I always suggest, wherever you're at, look up a antique furniture restoration company because they specialize in antique items. They specialize, in the finishes that they were created in and, just the different ways that they were created and put together. So I say, search out those specialties, those specialists that can do the work and that are trained and certified to do the work. And always tell your company, I want it to either be this company that does it, or I need, a reputable certified restoration company that can handle this. Some things, they will attempt to try to repair, because obviously repair is usually most of the time cheaper than replacing. So a lot of times they want to repair the item. Sometimes you just can't repair it, depending on what it is. Unfortunately, if you have an antique bed frame that's been passed down from your great-great-grandma or something, and, the footboard gets split and shattered in multiple pieces, it probably can't be repaired. But, that's what I always say on your antique stuff, have the appraisal done. Because if something should happen, because they're probably going to, if it's an antique sleigh bed, they're going to go on Ashley Furniture, find a sleigh bed that's the same look, and give you the $300 for it.
Oh, bump that.
But if you have that appraisal done that says this antique sleigh bed, is $3,000, you can hold them to that. So I always say it's worth it to have the appraisals done. Yes, it sucks putting out however much money it may cost. Some companies are great and will, give you so much time, and they can come to your home and you can just point out different things. Other times, it's an amount per piece for them to appraise it kind of deal. It depends, but it is so worth it to have that peace of mind, knowing that in the event of needing to make a claim, you have it appraised. And let's look at it not just for, having it for moving reasons, but should your house catch on fire, should, there be a tornado or a hurricane and it damages your home, you have that item appraised for that insurance purpose as well. So I think it's just always worth it to have those items appraised. And you asked about sentimental items, if you can have that item appraised, have it appraised. If it's something that somebody made for you, like for me, I had a custom wreath that was made one time that one of my friends gifted me, this very beautiful custom wreath. Absolutely loved it. It got damaged in one of our moves, completely fell apart, and I was devastated for it. And I was like, hey, give me a quote on how much this would cost to make, how much it was worth. If I wanted to buy this from you, what would it be? And she did, and I was able to claim it and get that value, and she made me another one. I know people have those custom farm tables and things that are built from their grandpa, or a rocker for their baby built from their grandpa or somebody. Ask them to write up a statement of how much it would cost, for them to build it for somebody else that wanted to pay them. Put that piece of paper in your fire safe box, scan it into your computer, keep it for record, so that way, heaven forbid, should something happen, you've got something to show a little bit of value for it. Because otherwise they're gonna go online and they're gonna go to Pier 1 and find a farmhouse table that looks exactly like yours and offer that. It won't be the same. It won't be the solid wood that your grandpa built yours in or anything like that. But you'll have that statement saying, hey, he would have charged somebody $7,000 to make this, and now I have to get a leg repaired for it, so let's negotiate this here so I can be made whole again.
Makes sense.
Yeah.
Yes. Word. You know what? This has been definitely an education. I feel like I just took I took a regulation boot camp. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
The boot camps that you do at the gym, only this one just kicked my rear end. But thankfully, again, that replay button and the links that Megan's fixing to drop down there in those comments will be the, the salt in the water that helps your body relax, the Epsom salt. That it won't be so bad from getting your butt kicked in our regulation boot camp here.
Yes. And I always say, it's so important to know, just to know the regulations. I hate hearing from families, of something happening and, I just want to cry for them. It's just what happened was wrong. It shouldn't have happened. There's a regulation for that. There's a way that you could have, held them more accountable for things. But a lot of it is just not knowing what you should know. And it's a bone I pick with the services a lot, because I don't think they do a very good job of, in the PCS levies and briefs, being able to educate families on what it is that they need to know. A lot of times it's go read it's their Move document, go look at Move.mil, and that's it. but they don't do a really good job at trying to, empower families to know where to find the answers that they need to know, and then be able to use those answers, use those regulations to help hold their moving companies accountable. And so, some of my big advice to people is, hey, read the regulations. If you do nothing else, know the DTR Part 4 Appendix B, know Attachment K1, take a look at the JTR Chapter 5, know that there's the claims liability business rules that you can look at should you need to file a claim, just to know these things and to know where to go to find those answers at. But it's definitely everybody should be able to take a look at it and be able to utilize it and make their move so much better and easier.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Word. Well, that was a lot, but remember, we're going to put them in there. We're going to put it down there in the comment section, all the links, all the resources for all of the things.
Yeah.
And again, that replay button is awesome, especially for our Oconus peeps, because we know that y'all have a lot of questions as well. And, with our PCS season being extended into the fall, and a lot of different changes happening, we want to hear from you. We know things are going to be different. Keep us updated on those changes, and we'll keep you updated on that policy. Thank you, Megan. So that's all we have today. We will see you next week. Now, we've been just really quick trying to figure out the timing. I think we're going to go back to 1 p.m. Eastern Standard Time on Wednesdays. We just want to make sure that you have enough time to hear our shenanigans while still making it to pick up time to get your kiddos from school if need be. So, yes, until next week, Megan.
This too shall PCS.
Bye, everybody.
Bye.